The Reds got a glimpse of their most important player for the rest of the season during their weekend series in Milwaukee, and there is an underlying reason that it seems Hunter Strickland is getting all of these ninth inning appearances. We'll dive into what that is on today's Locked On Reds.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Reds. Thanks for making Locked On Reds your first listen of the day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and we are free and available on all podcasting platforms. I'm your host, Stephen Offenbaker, alongside Jeff Carr, and we have a passion for baseball. We have a passion for the Cincinnati Reds, and we have taken that passion over 4 years each of podcasting experience, and we have turned that into information for you. On today's podcast, we are going to talk about the most recent position player to join the roster and the longest serving position player on the roster, and tell you how they are both going to help the Reds win some games the rest of the way. Jeff and I are also going to tell you about a bullpen situation that David Bell is indefensibly wrong about. And then finally, Jeff and I are going to catch you up on what exactly is going on with Hunter Greene and that $1 million right shoulder. And then we're also going to talk about the newest pitcher that is going to make his debut for the Reds in 2022. We have a lot of ground to cover. Today's episode is brought to you by Vroom. With Vroom, you can buy a car entirely online and have it delivered straight to you, so you never have to go to a dealership again. So the next time you need to buy a vehicle, grab your phone and head to vroom.com and check out thousands of great cars. Jeff, there are two very encouraging bats in this lineup right now for the Reds. One of them has been around a long time, and the other one is just starting to burst onto the scene and had a game for himself that was very, very encouraging for all of us that have been waiting for him to do something special to see it. And Jose Barrero finally delivered.
Yeah, let's start with him because Jose Barrero showed us how good things can be. We didn't see any of that the first time that he has been up. And honestly, the huge reason why we haven't seen him that much over the last year has just been injuries. He's been hurt. And when you're not hurt, you can't be on the field anywhere, let alone AAA or Major League Baseball. So a lot of that has been attributed. In his long rehab process, there were some things like, oh, we're worried about the slider and stuff like that. But now is the time to figure that out in Major League Baseball, because he's not going to figure that out in AAA and then all of a sudden be amazing at the MLB level. You just got to sink or swim. And sure, he had a rough game on Sunday, but that game on Saturday showed us how amazing things could be. Absolutely crushed an Aaron Ashby offering and then a Hobie Milner offering into pretty much the same spot. Like, just absolutely destroy it. I love to see that game from him because we haven't seen that yet. We haven't seen good from Jose Barrero.
No, it was really nice to see him have the opportunity to break out and do it actually, on a national stage. That was a national broadcast game. I mean, the plus side of that was it was a national broadcast game and got him exposure. The downside of that was the just god awful announcing that came along with that national broadcast game. But I don't want to sidetrack us on that. It was just really bad. I feel cheated that I didn't get John Sadak on Jose Barrero's first home run call. At least we had Tommy Thrall to fall back on, Jeff. But listen, excited to see that, excited for what it means. And, David Bell had a couple things to say post-game about Jose Barrero's performance. So before we continue talking about Jose, let's hear from David Bell.
Just had the game he had today. Great game. It's definitely a game of, where you definitely have to keep making adjustments and keep finding ways to get better. And he's working so hard and did a lot of work today before the game. And hopefully something clicked for him, because it really, truly is just a matter of time. He's a very talented player. He's going to get a chance to play here this year. And only his, first few games here, he seemed close, and then he broke through tonight. It's got to be a great feeling for him just to get that going and contribute to a win.
I think it's important to know, because they showed the replay and things like that of the 2 home runs, is that both pitches were kind of on the inner part of the plate, a little bit upper in the zone. He's been struggling with the low and away pitch, and really Corbin Burnes took advantage of him a couple of times in that area on Sunday's game. But it's good to see that when he is given a pitch that he should crush, he does crush it, because we heard that in AAA, like, oh yes, he's hitting so many home runs, and it's just like, well, it's in AAA, who cares? Like, he's got to do it at the major league level, and here it is. This is something that he can build off of moving forward. And yeah, sure, is it tough that he had 4 strikeouts and a golden sombrero on Sunday? Yeah, but you also played Corbin Burnes. Like, the fact that Michael Papierski hit a home run off of Corbin Burnes, I'm still shocked about.
And let's not forget that there are a couple of those at-bats where he's 0 for 4. He got hosed. And yes, listen, I know if you watched the game the day before, Angel Hernandez was behind the plate. So anybody behind the plate today was going to look like the best umpire in the history of Major League Baseball. But the dude missed some calls, and Jose Barrero, it cost him a couple times. So I was encouraged by his at-bats. He was up there battling. He fell behind 0-2 a couple times, but he continued to battle. He continued to try and work a count. And, I really believe one of those strikeout, when he got called looking, I really think he had worked a walk there. So there are even in the offer, there are things to be encouraged about with his performance following that 2 home run game.
And the idea of him panning out is just so awesome for the Reds. If he works, if the bat works, because the fielding is fine, the glove, the arm, everything is beautiful. He made an amazing snap throw to first base that got a guy whenever he was trying to get back to first when Papierski had him dead to rights on an attempted steal. He fields so amazingly. So it's what he can do in the batter's box. If that works, you were talking about just a glut of talent that the Reds have at the shortstop position, guys who are listed as shortstops who they can then move to other positions. And I feel like there's some people that think that that's a negative. Like, you will have a roster full of
8
athletes.
shortstops and a catcher. 8 shortstops and a catcher. That's what we're going to do.
What's bad about that? Yeah. Sign me up every day of the week for that. That's what I want to see.
As exciting as it is looking at this young guy finally maybe starting to show us signs of breaking out, something else I wanted to talk about, Jeff, is there's an old man on this roster, and he's very sneakily, very quietly, since the end of April, started to put together a really, really above average season. And that, of course, is the one and only Joseph Daniel Votto.
And you probably have missed these stat lines, because I'm not going to lie, Steve had to point them out to me, because after watching him play on Sunday and just get embarrassed by Corbin Burnes on multiple occasions, I was like, oh my gosh, how is our boy Joey doing? He's doing real well, Steve. Those numbers since April make you really happy about how he's been playing.
I mean, absolutely. If you look at just his slash line since April, it's 249, 352, 480. And like you said, we're not going to get the MVP Votto anymore. That guy's probably not turning up ever again, father time and all. But Since April, that equates to a weighted runs created plus, Jeff, of 133. His performance since April is 33% above league average.
That's our man, Joey. He still bangs, because he's been phenomenal since the month of April. And then you look at the fact, like, let's put this into perspective here, because I think people understand that there's a lot of folks that like to cherry pick their stats, and they like to say, okay, well, we're going to get rid of the bad, and if you just look at the good, then yeah, he's really good. This isn't that way. Like, the month of April was so far and away different than the rest of this season has been for him. In the month of April, in the 21 games that he played in the month of April, he had 1 extra base hit. The difference between you, me, and Joey Votto is that he had 1 more extra base hit than we did in the month of April. And he had 3 RBIs in the month of April. Just completely shut down. And he had almost a third. He has 90 total strikeouts after Sunday on the season. He had 27 strikeouts in the month of April. He was the most un-Joey Votto that ever Joey Votto'd, and didn't Joey Votto when we needed him to Joey Votto.
And I'll tell you, to put in perspective, and you're absolutely right. You can kind of, if you've ever taken a stats class in college, you learn you can make the data do some things you want it to do if you get selective. So fine, let's not do that. Let's throw out my since April talk. But I want to tell you how good he's been since April. Let's take his season as a whole. Even with that horrendous April, his weighted runs created plus for the entire season through today is 108. He is 8% above league average, factoring in that horrid April. That's how good he's been since the 1st of May.
He had 10 total bases that month. Just ridiculously un-Joey Votto-like. And the fact that he has turned it around since then, I don't think he's been given enough credit for that, because I think that there are still plenty of people that are expecting him, like you said, MVP. They're expecting a 300 batting average, a 400 on base, and a 500 slugging from Joey Votto, and that's just not going to happen anymore. And what he's been giving the Reds has really been a huge reason as to why the Reds have not lost the series. I can't believe we went this long, by the way, Steve. We went 10 minutes into the show without saying this. The Reds haven't lost a series since the All-Star break. What? Yeah, I said that.
They won. And there's more than just the AL East. We actually just took a series from the division leader. We knocked them out of first place, Jeff.
Knocked them out of first place, which that helps the Cardinals. So that'll take us down a dark path. But whatever. That's still, I mean, the Reds got to win, right? I'm just really happy with what we've been seeing. Jose Barrero figuring things out really sets this team up for a quick rebuild. It really does. And Joseph Daniel Votto has led this team to a resurgence as of late, which I think we saw the other day. The over might be back in play.
The over might be back, baby.
74 wins. That'd be really interesting. I don't know. I'm almost there. I'm not quite back yet. I'm optimistic, but I'm not quite back there yet. We'll see. But I tell you this, there is an incentive clause in the contract of Hunter Strickland that is making me wonder, is David Bell just trying to help this dude get paid? We'll discuss that in just a moment. But you know what, Steve? There's a thing that as fall is coming along, you need to be checking out. When you grow your small business, LinkedIn can help you out, because you need the right people on your team to help your small business fire on all cylinders. And LinkedIn Jobs is here to make it easy to find the people that you want to talk to faster and for free. Create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Then add your job and the purple hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring so that your network can help you find the right people to hire. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you want to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rank LinkedIn Jobs number one, not two, not three, number one in delivering quality hires versus the leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know that every week nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnMLB. That's linkedin.com/LOCKEDONMLB to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Coming up later this week, the Reds are in a cornfield in Iowa. We've got the Field of Dreams game with the Cubs, and Locked On Cubs is going to join us. We're going to preview this amazing game, and we're going to dive into two of the most historic franchises in all of baseball. We're going to look at the all-time Cubs and Reds rosters and what that would look like if you could see an actual Field of Dreams game between the Cubs and the Reds, because that's going to be a lot of fun, Steve. I know that it's a 162-game season, and there's a lot of games to talk about, and there's a lot of games that mean a lot of different things, but for one day, we're going to be able to evaluate a game solely based on itself, and I cannot wait for that.
I'm really looking forward to that game, Jeff. The only thing that gives me a little bit of pause about it is last year's game was just so electric that it's a lot to live up to. But I really hope that Nick Lodolo can go out there and do something special and really, raise our excitement a level, at least just for a night.
I'm already excited the fact that he's the probable starter. So that in and of itself is electric, but it's going to be great to watch. And you're right. I mean, the sequel is rarely ever better than the original, but we're going to try. We're going to try. You know what's going to help is if Hunter Strickland doesn't pitch the 9th inning of that game or any other game for the rest of the season. Like, I know, I get it. The Reds won last night, but they almost didn't because of Hunter Strickland in the 9th inning. And this man continues to pitch the 9th inning for, help me out here, Steve, because I'm not coming up with any reason.
Listen, Hunter, it's not just an eye test, Jeff. Our buddy Matt Wilkes over at Reds Content Plus sent out a tweet after that debacle in the 9th inning. And there's a lot of statistical categories that are ranked out there. And there's 162 relievers that qualify when you put an innings cap or an innings minimum on it. And when you do that, you get 162 relievers. And not one statistical category does Hunter Strickland rank better than 150. Out of 162, there are at least 149 relievers in baseball better than Hunter Strickland. I, for the life of me, cannot figure out what they are doing. I can't figure out why Hunter Strickland is still on this roster. I mean, they just sent Dowry Moretta down. And at least Dowry Moretta has some upside. Keep him up there. Let him blow saves in the 9th inning. I mean, he can do that just as easy and learn something, and it might lead to improvement. Hunter Strickland, we know who he is. He's a guy that needs to be bagging groceries at the grocery store. He should not be a Major League Baseball pitcher, and it makes absolutely no sense that David Bell continues to run him out there.
Right. And from all intents and purposes, he's an awesome guy. He's got a lot of great off-the-field stuff. But that's all well and good. We're trying to figure out the future of this team. And we knew 3 months ago that he wasn't going to be in this bullpen whenever the Reds were good again. So why on earth are we still trying to run him out there and figure things out? But I'll tell you this, Steve, and I shout this out. Our friend Drew Cook over at the Blog Red Machine actually had an article, and this was back in March. He kind of got some of the details, and I think it was John Heyman that tweeted out the details of the contract for Hunter Strickland. And there's a clause in Hunter Strickland's contract. If he finishes, so, whether he saves it or not, whether he blows the save, but the game ends and he's the pitcher, if he finishes 20 games, he gets $100,000, a bonus of $100,000.
What number was tonight?
Well, had he actually finished the game, because he didn't finish the game, he had to be pulled, but it would have been number 20 because he's on 19 games finished currently right now in the season. I can't for the life of me understand it. And then every 5 games past those 20, so, 25, 30, 35, and I believe it goes all the way up to 40, which God help us if we get to 40. But that's another 100,000 for every 5 past 20. It was obvious.
Put on your prognostication hat for me for just a minute. So what happens if he gets the 20? You tease this? Is it your contention that possibly David Bell gets him to 20 and then asks for him to be DFA'd?
I almost wonder if he just keeps. I don't think that there's any contrition here. I obviously don't think that David Bell is trying to bring about some sort of financial ruin to his current employers. But there's a little bit of, well, you ain't going to pay for the roster, but you could pay for this guy, so let's just keep rolling him out there and seeing if he can finish the game. And he's just going to keep cashing in those checks. I don't think it's that way. That sounds vindictive, but you could be right. He could get one more finish because he said yesterday after the game, David Bell said this, and I'm going to give an impression here because I wanted to find a video like we had of Jose Barrero, but I couldn't find a video of it. But here's my impression of David Bell talking about Hunter Strickland. Yeah, well, we got to put him in a good position here. He's got to work on some things, but he'll get better because moving forward, he's our guy. He's the guy that we're going to turn to the rest of the way. So he'll get there though. He's a solid vet.
Listen, if he continues to be the closer of this team, it is just almost criminal. And listen, and don't get me wrong, Jeff. I've already seen the hate out there about it should have been Diaz in the ninth, and why was it? Listen, I liked the fact that they used
he faced
Diaz
the meat of the
for
order.
the middle of the order. Now,
Yeah.
I will tell you that what I would have, I think that David Bell needs to learn just a little bit more nuance in these things that he does. Reiver Sanmartin came out and threw 3 pitches the inning before and got 3 outs. So I would suspect he still had a little something in the tank. What I would have liked to have seen was him to come back out and start that inning. And if he gets into trouble, you immediately go to Diaz. You have Diaz loaded, warmed up, ready to go. But if Sanmartin can get you even just 2 more outs, well, now you're in a new situation because Diaz can come in, get the final out of the 8th, and then pitch the 9th. So I would like to see him be a little bit more selective in just exactly how fast he pulls the hook on these guys sometimes. Now, I know Sanmartin could have given up a home run and it could have been tied. Well, hell, that's what Strickland did, so it doesn't matter. So let's go with guys that have upside. And in this situation, both Diaz and Sanmartin have upside. Strickland does not.
Well, and you could even push it back further. Like if we just think of David Bell, like back in college, whenever you were typing a paper and you were just trying to, expand the margins a little bit, maybe, make the commas bigger so that you got more room on the paper and you were filling out more stuff. Buck Farmer, he only threw 1 out. You had Joe Kunal pitch an entire inning. You could have Buck Farmer pitch 1 or 2 more outs maybe, and then Joe Kunal pitches a little bit into the 8th, and then Sanmartin either finishes the 8th or pitches an out in the 8th, and then Diaz comes in. Like I just there is nuance, like you said, that David Bell can employ here, and it feels like David Bell in his mind. And it's the only mind where this seems to make sense. But in his mind, it's Alexis Diaz in the 8th and it's Hunter Strickland in the 9th. And I think the contract's the only thing that explains that.
Maybe I do have this thought, though, Jeff, that there could be some load management thoughts going on in David Bell's mind. Because of the way he did it today, only Joe Kunal is probably unavailable to start the Mets series. Everybody else that pitched tonight out of the bullpen can probably go again tomorrow. So there's some of that. I kind of see, I can see that a little bit, but I tell you, you got to win the games you can win, man. And against the division rival that you take a series from, you win that game and you manage that game to win it. And I don't know. I mean, then we would be griping at him tomorrow for having Strickland and
that's the job of a manager.
Exactly. But listen, let's end this bullpen segment on a high note, and I want to give you a second to talk about your boy because Alexis Diaz, man, wow.
I'm telling you, and it was the fact that I had the place to myself whenever he was pitching. I was screaming, I was yelling. That slider comes, it just hits the bottom of the zone. Guys look at it, strike 1. Come on, let's go. The guys swing right over top of it. Oh my gosh, he is so much fun to watch. And I just really don't want him to be any worse than this. I want him to continue to get better because he is so much fun right now. And it's funny because we noticed whenever I was looking up some stats before we started today, according to Baseball Reference, he has the highest WAR, according to Baseball Reference, on the team right now, because it was Castillo, then Malley, then Drury. Obviously they're not here anymore. Now it's Diaz. And oh my gosh, that slider, because early on in the season we were just like, oh, that fastball. Now we're like, oh, that slider just love it. I love it, Steve. I love it.
Well, basically the big takeaway, Jeff, is anyone but Hunter Strickland should be pitching for the Reds the rest of the way. Anybody else, Hunter Strickland should go. Well, listen, Hunter Greene was placed on the injured list, which opens up an awesome opportunity for Justin Dunn. Will we be without Greene for a long period of time? And what can we expect from Justin Dunn? That's what we're going to discuss coming up in just a second. But first, I want to tell you about BetOnline.net. The Mets right now for today's game actually are -300 on the money line. Sounds like people don't have a lot of faith in Justin Dunn being able to shut down this Mets lineup. in his debut. If you want to find out about that and lots more bets you can place, head over to betonline.net right now because it is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your betting needs. Find all of your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for the odds, lines, and games. You can find reviews and news from every league, including Major League Baseball, the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, and all of the combat sports. They've also got esports and even golf. I've never bet on golf, but if Jeff's playing, bet against whatever he's doing. This I know. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports wagering information. From live in-game betting to scores and podcasts, they have you covered. Head to betonline.net today. You can use your computer or mobile device to learn more about the action happening right now. BetOnline.net. It's where the game starts. You can follow the podcast on all platforms available, including YouTube. Make sure you do that. We've got lots of great content out there for you, and we don't want you to miss any of it. Coming up tomorrow, Jeff and I will have you covered as the Reds start a 3-game set in New York City against the Mets. We will go over Justin Dunn's debut and get you set for Game 2. You can follow the show on Twitter. You can follow me at S. Offenbaker. You can follow Jeff at Jeff Carr. That's Jeff with 3 Fs. And you can follow the show at Locked On Reds. Also, again, click that bell if you're on YouTube. Subscribe. Don't miss anything. All right, Jeff, we've got a couple different things to talk about here in this segment because Hunter Greene was placed on the injured list over the weekend. The Reds have said that they sent him for an MRI. It did not show anything that was going to require surgery. And many have speculated that this is more of a load management injured list stint than anything else. And while I have yet to find anything that just confirms that, it does seem to make sense.
Yeah, because they also came out and they said there is no timetable for his return. And let's like just kind of play this out for a minute. The injured list that he just went on is the 15-day list. And I think it was like retroactive back to like Thursday or something like that. And so if you kind of stretch that out, that's in the middle of August. Okay, that's fine. But if it's really shoulder fatigue, are we going to bring him back as quickly as possible? That's not something you want to mess with in a pitcher.
No, here's the thing. If he goes to 15 days, that's 3 starts. He's going to miss 3 starts. And if they immediately activate him at the end of the 15 days, then, maybe he had tweaked something. That's a little extra rest. I don't really have a problem with them firing him back up. If it's any longer than that, if he misses a 4th or 5th start, at that point, you're talking about now a shoulder that's had a month and a half of rest, and we really want to ask him to fire that back up well into September in a season that's lost already. No, get out of here with that. You keep him shut down. Thanks for your service this season, Hunter Greene. You did an amazing job. We'll see you in February at spring training. That's the direction I would go with that because it is just not worth risking that shoulder to ask him to fire it back up and get in game shape and all of those things that could go wrong and asking a young pitcher to do that. With his innings count right now, and again, we've had this conversation about innings versus pitches thrown, but his innings count right now is pretty much right at his max of where it's been before. So I don't have a problem with saying that's good.
No, and I totally agree because, and even if he were in the running for this, I don't necessarily think that would mean anything, but like he's not in the running for Rookie of the Year or anything like that. I kind of thought he'd be a lot closer to the top of that award watch, but whatever. It's been a nice rookie year. He's learned a lot. He definitely knows. Maybe it is the time. Shut him down. Let's start working on that changeup. Let's get that changeup ready for spring training and then come out in spring training and throw nothing but changeups so that he's ready to go with that 3rd pitch next year because that's all he needs. I swear, I don't see any other part of his game that he needs to tweak. But with him going out, however long, that opens up an opportunity for Justin Dunn, who is a guy that we've not seen ever since we heard his name in that trade for Eugenio Suarez and Jesse Winker.
Well, he came over in this deal and listen, folks, he was already banged up and that wasn't a secret. I don't want people to get the impression, oh man, the Mariners pulled one. No, that's not what happened. Everyone was well aware that Justin Dunn had some issues going on. So he has now worked his way back. The timing has worked out that it was coincidentally right around the trade deadline. And we thought that we would see him right after the trade deadline. Ended up being Duggar, and a lot of that just had to do with the fact that Dunn had pitched on like the day before the trade deadline, somewhere in that neighborhood. So he wasn't ready to go. So now he's getting a little bit of an extended rest. I think he was due. He could have pitched like yesterday. On his regular rest rotation. So give him a couple extra days, get him up, let him prepare. So he's had time to focus on the Mets and get the scouting reports and get himself ready. I'm glad for that. Put him in the best position possible to make his Reds debut, because there is a lot of pressure on this debut, whether, you really feel it or not, or you really, haven't sat back and thought about it for a minute, but this is where we start to see some of the return for Winker and Suarez. So, I'm sure Nick Kroll is paying attention. But as we move into this start, Jeff, tell us a little bit about Dunn. What can we expect when he takes the mound in New York?
He's got a 4-pitch mix, at least according to his scouting profile. He's got a fastball, changeup, curveball, and slider. So, pretty typical 4 pitches. Now, he doesn't grade really super high on any of them. However, his slider is the best graded pitch on the, the 20 to 80 scale. His slider's a 50. Everything else is like a 40 and a 45. He kind of seems like a guy in the profiles that I've read. He's like a 5th starter, spot starter type dude, probably a long relief type pitcher. Maybe we see him in the bullpen in a year or two, but as of right now, it's fine that he's starting. We can see what we have out of him. But other than that, what you're going to see tomorrow, the first thing that they're going to throw up is when he pitched in 2021, he had 11 starts and he threw just a tad over 50 innings. And you're going to see this one number that's going to get your expectations through the roof, and that is he had a 3.75 ERA. What I want you to know about that is the predictors were not kind to that, said that he was getting lucky. His xFIP, which is rated as the best predictor of an ERA, was at 5.61. So when you see Justin Dunn have a blank canvas of expectations, don't think that a 3.75 ERA is what we're getting here, and we're getting like a number 2 starter who's just going to absolutely take the reins and transform this pitching staff right now. We're probably looking at a dude that profiles very close to Reiver Sanmartin. And you know what? If the Reds figure that out, I'm okay with that.
I'm trying to keep my expectations kind of low on Dunn. Yeah. And if he outperforms that, great. It's a bonus. Throughout his career, Jeff, he's kind of been a fly ball pitcher. And yes, that doesn't profile very well at Great American Ballpark. Just ask Mike Minor about not keeping the ball on the ground. So that gives me a little bit of concern. Now, obviously, those things can change from year to year. And if he's truly a relief pitcher type of guy, I've been telling you for years now that you can't count on those guys usually from outing to outing, let alone year to year. They're always swinging back and forth and changing. So for me, I'm going to approach this with an open mind, hope that he's able to keep the ball on the ground instead of out of the air, hope that he's able to build upon the things he did last season before he got injured. And then you're right. If he starts this year and ultimately is a really solid bullpen guy, well, you and I have talked about off air, and I'm going to beat this drum, or trash can, depending on if we're playing Houston. And I'm gonna continue to say that I think the Reds could be a wild card contender in 2023 with a bullpen upgrade and maybe a veteran outfielder. So if he becomes part of that bullpen upgrade, all the better.
And I would love to see that, because I think that the bullpen is a blank canvas outside of Alexis Diaz. He's the one guy that I want to see in next year's bullpen, 100% for sure. There's some other dudes that if the Reds run them back, give them another shot, I'll be okay with that. None of them are Hunter Strickland, but I just don't necessarily think that there's anybody who's cemented a role in there. And if you can have a dude that, maybe he's a starter, maybe he's a long relief type pitcher, we have seen value in that. I've talked about it before. Guys like Eric Lauer and Brent Suter and things like that for the Brewers, they have gone really far with those guys. So you need 1 or 2 of those dudes throughout a season. If Justin Dunn can fit into that mold and works out to be that way on a cost controllable contract that, ownership's going to love, then that is just absolutely one dude less that they got to worry about this offseason.
You're absolutely right. I'm really just kind of looking forward to seeing what Dunn brings. And I really am hopeful that he finds some success almost immediately for the Reds.
So, What stinks is we're probably not going to see Hunter Greene for the rest of this year, but given the news, shoulder fatigue, totally okay with that. No, I don't want them rushing him back any reason at all, because there's no damage, doesn't require surgery. There's guys that we can get an extended look at. Who knows? Maybe we could see a look at Brandon Williamson. I know we've talked about this before, probably not, but who knows? Anyway, the whole thing here is we are probably Justin Dunn with Hunter Greene in 2022, but that's all right.
Oh, that's the worst dad joke ever.
And on that bombshell, it's time to end. Thank you so much for watching and for listening to the Locked On Reds podcast.
I'm so sorry to our listeners.
We are so happy to have you along for some Reds talk. Coming up tomorrow, we're going to take a look at this start by Justin Dunn and see exactly what he brings to the ball club. Plus, is there a guy, and the news might actually come down, but I'd be interested to talk about him. What can Franmil Reyes do as a Cincinnati Red? Would he be a guy worth going after on the waiver wire? We're going to talk about that and more on tomorrow's Locked On Reds podcast. Now make your second listen the Locked On MLB podcast, as MLB expert Paul Francis Sullivan brings you humor, passion, and a unique perspective on every team and the biggest stories around the league. Plus, dude's been taking a road trip through all the stadiums. I'm sure he's going to be talking about that. Check it out, Locked On MLB, just like Locked On Reds, free and available on all platforms. Steve, as we move through this week, we're headed to the cornfields in Iowa. But first, we're in the Big Apple to face Alexis Diaz's brother. So what can people expect from you and me?
They can expect us to be locked in on the bright lights in the big city and to be locked on Reds every single day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.